time to dismiss for children's church downstairs. Dismiss them. You know, I got here this morning and started looking around and I started thinking about Gideon. And it's such a great army, it was reduced down to 300 men. And we're a few short this week. Some are being blessed down on the banks of the fish walk up like that. Creation down there. And they're doing their time together to worship. Okay? If you think about Gideon's army, though he reduced it by so much, by God's hand, the enemy was defeated. And we can do the same thing today. We're here to praise God. And there might not be as many of us as there usually is. But by praising God, we can still defeat the enemy today. And we get to sing a song about heaven, so there's some inspiration for us, I hope. I started to say that when the first song and the second song, I did it with the time. Now I said it. Here we go. I've a home prepared where the saints abide, just over in the glory land. And I long to be by my Savior's side, just over in the glory land. Just over in the glory land, I'll join the happy angel band, just over in the glory land. Just over in the glory land, there with the mighty host I'll stand, just over in the glory land. I am on my way to those mansions fair, just over in the glory land. There to sing God's praise and His glory share, just over in the glory land. Just over in the glory land, I'll join the happy angel band, just over in the glory land. Just over in the glory land, there with the mighty host I'll stand, just over in the glory land. What a joyful thought that my Lord I'll see, just over in the glory land. And with kindred safe there forever be, just over in the glory land. Just over in the glory land, I'll join the happy angel band, just over in the glory land. Just over in the glory land, there with the mighty host I'll stand, just over in the glory land. With the blood-washed song I will shout and sing, just over in the glory land. Glad hosannas to Christ the Lord and King, just over in the glory land. Just over in the glory land, I'll join the happy angel band, just over in the glory land. Just over in the glory land, there with the mighty host I'll stand, just over in the glory land. Please be seated.
If you'd like to follow along with me, this morning's scripture will be read from Acts chapter 27, and I'm reading verses 13 through 19. It says, when a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw the opportunity, so they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force, called the northeaster, swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind, so we gave way to it and were driven along. And as we passed to the lee of a small island called Cauda, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure. So the men hoisted it abroad. Then they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together, because they were afraid they would not run aground on the sandbars of Syrtis. They lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took such a violent battering from the storm that next day that they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Glad that you are here this morning. I look out over the auditorium, a lot of empty seats. Be praying for those. I think many are at camp, and also there was a wedding. Many went down or over, or wherever it was. They went to a wedding. And so we're missing some of our brothers and sisters, and we're praying for their safe return. I was just observing this morning, by the way, keep your Bible open in Acts chapter 27, it was just read for you, but just observing I don't know what to call it except varied skin tones that are up here this morning. I think it's great. We have Sid, and Sid leading singing for us, and I bumped into Sid not long ago at Home Depot, and now I can't see him except with the pencil behind his ear and the Home Depot apron on, and it just, that vision comes into mind, but I'm learning to get to know Sid. What a great guy. Marcus was up here. Marcus, just a little bit darker skin color, but Marcus and I go back a long way, 1997. And when I was first preaching at the Rockford Church of Christ, and Marcus has always been an encourager. But one thing is, he remembers a dumb joke that I told, and I've told thousands of dumb jokes. He remembers a joke that I told back in 1997, and he reminded me of it not too long ago, and I thought that was great, because I had forgotten that joke, but I'm glad it was back in my repertoire again. And then Jose gets up here. Jose's somewhere in the middle between Sid and Marcus in skin tone, and I'm getting to know Jose, but every time Jose's up here, he talks about the 4th of July, and then I thought about the Star Spangled Banner, and Jose, can you see? And he didn't have his glasses on, so and then he said, I don't read well, and I thought, we need subtitles. That's what we need on the screen. But Jose is a great guy. And then you have a redneck in a red suit, and so we've just about covered the gambit. Somewhere we have somebody that connects. Glad that you are here this morning. Welcome to the North Park Church of Christ, our Sunday morning worship service. We're continuing through a series of lessons called When a Setback, no, that's today's lesson, how God turns setbacks into comebacks. And today we're talking about when a setback isn't your fault. We've been looking at different kinds of setbacks and how a person in the Bible handled it. We talked about a business setback. We looked at Peter, who was a professional fisherman, and he said, we fished all night, we didn't catch a thing. And how God turned it into a comeback. And then we looked at the story of Job and his devastating setback. And what do you do when you have a setback that just seems irreversible? He lost everything, but God gave him a comeback. And today I want to look at what to do when your setback isn't your fault. Those who have been deeply hurt by other people, you know what I'm talking about. You had a setback. You were hurt by someone. Wasn't your fault. I know some of you have struggled with your identity, your emotions, your physical health, because some person, maybe they abused you, or maybe they hurt you deeply in some way and it affected you greatly. We're talking about the major storms of life this morning. They're not your fault when somebody else brings it into your life and they can wreak havoc on your health and on your hope. But in Acts chapter 27, there is a story. And I hope that you grabbed one of the outlines out. They were out on the table by the bulletins. If you got one of those, I apologize. The very last verse was cut off. Just, we'll deal with it. It's a very dramatic example of how we can often suffer because of the foolish choices that other people make. Let me give you some background. The Apostle Paul has always wanted to go to Rome to preach the gospel. It's his greatest desire, his greatest dream, to go and preach in the Colosseum. Rome is the greatest, the most powerful city in the world at the time, but he doesn't get there the way he had planned. He gets there by way of being a prisoner, not through preaching a series of gospel meetings or whatever they would have called it in that day. He's not there preaching, he's just there as a prisoner. And he has been unfairly put on trial for a crime he didn't commit. Because he's a Roman citizen, he has the right to appeal to Caesar in capital offense cases, and so he has done so. He's used his appeal to Caesar to actually get a free ticket to go to Rome. Now we're picking up the story where Paul is put on a prison ship in Crete. It's an island in the Mediterranean Sea. He's headed for Rome. The ship is docked there on this island at Crete, but the crew has spent too much time on shore leave. And autumn is turning into winter. It would be unsafe for them to sail in the middle of the winter, so they're ready to go. They're ready to leave. God tells Paul to warn the captain of the ship, wait until winter is over. Don't leave now. Wait until winter is over. You'll sail smoothly. Well, at the top of your outline, Acts chapter 27 and verse 41 says, the ship struck a reef and ran aground. And actually, Paul was in 3 different shipwrecks in his lifetime, if you can imagine that. What does this story have to do with us, though? 2,000 years have passed. It actually answers 3 very important questions. Number 1, what causes people to make bad choices that create setbacks and storms for other people? I'm already lost on my slides. I don't know where I am, but anyway, if you can find it, put it up there. What causes people to make bad choices? It creates setbacks. It creates storms for other people. We're going to talk about that in this passage. Number 2, what do you need to know about the storms and setbacks that aren't your fault? We're going to look at that. Number 3, what do you need to remember when you're in a storm that's wrecking your ship and you feel hopeless? Now, what causes people to make bad choices? We make some dumb decisions. What causes us to do that and create setbacks and storms for other people? That's what this story is illustrating, so you might write this down. Number 1, what causes people to make bad decisions is this. First, I think I've got it. When we listen to ungodly advice. If you listen to ungodly advice, you're probably going to make a dumb decision. If you listen to something if God has something to say and you listen to someone else, that's going to create havoc in your life. I want you to pick up the story here. It's in verse 11. But the Roman officer in charge of the prisoners didn't listen to Paul. The Roman officer in charge of the prisoners didn't listen. Remember we just said God gave Paul the message and he gave the message to the captain, wait until after winter is over. But they didn't listen. This message is from God, but they didn't listen. Now just think about it a minute. Have you ever been given bad advice? Just raise your hand. Anybody, you've been given some bad advice? I think we all have. I've noticed as a preacher that some people use experts to validate their bias. What they do is they go around asking experts until they find one who agrees with them. That's the expert then that they listen to. They didn't really want advice. They just wanted somebody to reinforce what they were planning on doing. And sometimes we're guilty of that. If you listen to anything other than God's advice, if God is speaking on something, listen to that. Secondly, if you copy the crowd. If you're just going to go ahead and do what everybody else is doing. In other words, you're just going to do what's popular. Go with the flow. Copy the crowd. That's verse 12. The crew decided that they should go ahead and sail up the coast of Crete because the majority wanted to spend the winter in Phoenix and it had a nice harbor. Not Arizona, but they wanted to go to Phoenix and play some golf maybe. I don't know, it's a different Phoenix, but it said the majority wanted to. Okay, so they're not listening to God, they're listening to the majority. It's interesting, 2,000 years later, people still want to spend the winter in Phoenix. History shows the majority is often wrong. The majority said, let's go ahead and do it. But the majority is often wrong. Story after story in the Bible. Remember the 12 spies? Sent into the land, 10 of them come back. The majority says, we can't do it. 2 said, yes we can. Just as often as the experts are wrong, the majority is often wrong. There are, I believe, 260, now I'm a little bit doubting that number. It tells us how many people are on the ship. Maybe it's 270 something, I don't remember. 276, okay? 276 people on the ship. That is a 273 to 3 vote if Paul's traveling companions voted with him. 273 to 3. So they choose to go with the majority. Now let me ask you, can you think of anybody that shipwrecked their life because they followed the crowd? I bet you can. They did what was popular. Oh, we see it every single day. Number 3, if you're going to rely on circumstances instead of Jesus Christ, you're probably going to end up with havoc in your life. That's the next verse. We're going to get into trouble. We're going to have setbacks if you listen to circumstances more than you listen to Christ. Verse 13 says, when a gentle wind began to blow from the south, the crew thought, notice this phrase, the crew thought they had obtained what they wanted. They have a gentle breeze. It looks nice. Great day to go sailing. Everything is right. We have the majority. Who cares what God said? Let's set sail. This is great. If you pay attention to circumstances and you don't listen to what God says, you're going to listen to the crowd and you're going to do what circumstances say, you're probably going to end up with havoc in your life. Have you ever heard this justification? Well, it feels right. It must be right. This just feels right. I think this is the right thing to do. It feels good. It must be good. That's terrible logic. I've noticed that what people actually get when they get what they want, they find out it's never as good as they thought it was going to be. Why should I never trust my circumstances? Because circumstances change constantly. They change overnight. They change immediately. They're trying to go up the coast of Crete, and now they're blown out to sea, and they're at the mercy of a storm. Circumstances changed. What am I saying? If you listen to ungodly advice, if you copy the crowd, and it feels good and it looks good, it's going to get you in trouble. The next thing we learn from this story, and what do I need to do about the storms? I mean, storms are going to come in my life, so what am I going to do with them? Number 1, storms cause me to drift from my goal. That's Acts chapter 27 and verse 15. The ship was caught in the storm, and the wind is so strong that they couldn't sail against it. They lost all control, so they stopped trying. They gave up and they let the wind drive them, drifting in every direction. Oh boy, that verse is packed with some insight. There is a voice inside of you that keeps saying, what's the use in trying? Everything is all messed up. The storm is blowing. It's getting bad. Why should I even try? Why try to save the situation? What's the use of working so hard? Why make the effort? Let me get in your face just a moment. I'm going to ask you a personal question. What kind of ropes have you been trying to use to hold it all together? See, the text says they tried ropes, wrapping ropes around the ship to hold it together. What kind of ropes have you been tying around your ship as you're out there at sea being tossed around by the storm? Let's look at a better alternative. The first thing you need to know is when you're in a storm, things are going to fall apart. And you have to realize they can cause you to drift. So we're going to get that in just a moment. But number two, storms can cause me to discard what I used to value. In other words, your priorities, your values, they'll change when you're in pain, when you're in a storm, after a setback. You're struggling. And you're asking, is this ever going to end? Will I ever get out of this situation? You've been in pain. Some stuff just doesn't matter as much anymore. Other stuff matters even more than it used to. You've had a long-term illness. You were ill for months and months. All of a sudden you value your health a whole lot more than you ever did. Now in verses 18 and 19 of Acts 27 it says, the next day, I want you to notice the progression. They start throwing cargo overboard. Almost sounds like the story of Jonah, doesn't it? The ship's at sea, it's being tossed about, they've wrapped ropes around it, that's not working. They start tossing cargo overboard. They're trying to lighten the ship. Then they throw out the equipment that they need to run the ship. They're getting rid of important stuff, tossing it overboard. There's a third thing that storms do. In the next verse, you'll find out storms can cause me to despair, to drift. It says the terrible storm raged unabated for days, blotting out both the sun and the stars until the dark. We finally gave up what? All hope of being saved. They're just throwing it all overboard. They're discarding it. The ship is in disrepair. And I want you to picture this. Days and days, about 2 weeks, they're in total darkness. No stars, no sun. They have no idea where they are, being tossed back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The waves are just beating them up. We're doomed. We're finished. The last thing they gave up was hope. Hope is always the last thing to go. But the amazing part of the story is how very different Paul's reaction is than everyone else. Everybody else panicked. Paul's at peace. Everyone else is in disrepair and in despair. Paul is at peace. How? How is that possible? Remember, the storm is not Paul's fault. He's still filled with hope even in days of total darkness. I'm going to give you 3 more truths and then the lesson is yours. 3 more truths right now that are like anchors that will give you stability in the most unstable situations. They're all in this passage. You're being tossed around. You're tempted to drift. You're going to throw stuff away that's valuable. You're in despair. I want you to throw out 3 anchors. The first anchor is the presence of God. The presence of God. He's with me. He never left me. The second anchor is the purposes of God. God's purpose is greater than my setback or my storm. His purpose is going to be accomplished. And the third anchor, God's promises can be trusted. Now I'm going to back up and talk about each one for just a brief moment. You're not alone. God hasn't left you in your storm. It's not your fault, but God hasn't left you. He's still there. He has not abandoned you. I don't know what you're going through right now, but as you hear me saying these words, I know one thing, and that is God is with you. So cast out an anchor that says, I know God is here. And then secondly, remember that His purpose is going to come about no matter what. So you might as well be in it. You need to throw out that anchor. These kinds of storms or setbacks come along. There's 3 anchors that will give you hope. 1, God is here. 2, His purpose will take place. Chapter 27 and verse 24. God's angel said to me, don't be afraid, Paul. You'll certainly stand trial before Caesar. What's more, God in His goodness has granted safety to everyone else sailing with you. Paul, you're going to make it there. You're not going to die in the storm. My purpose for you in Rome will be carried out. And number 3, He gives us promises, and they are guaranteed. When it looks like your ship is about to crack up, His promises can be trusted. what the next couple of verses say in Acts chapter 27. Where is Paul's faith? It's not in the ship. The ship's breaking up. Where is his faith? Is it in people, the captain? No, it's not in that either. He's given up all hope. So I want you to get this. It's very important. Keep up your courage, men. For I have faith in God that it will all turn out just as God has promised. Nevertheless, we're all going to first be shipwrecked on some island. What's the meaning of this for us today? Well, let me ask you this question. What man-made, puny little lifeboat have you been holding on to for security? At one point, the sailors tried to abandon the ship, thinking their lifeboat would save them. What's your little lifeboat that you're jumping into, thinking it's going to save you? What have you been holding on to for security? These guys think this giant ship's cracking up. I'll be saved by jumping in this little lifeboat. Think about that logic. This is not the Titanic. This is not where you're putting down the lifeboats. Get in, you'll be saved. There is a storm that's beating up our big ship, so let's get in the little ship and see if it'll beat it up too. What have you been thinking will save you? Your good works? Your nice personality? The safest place to be is in God's will. That's the safest place you can be. Right in the center of God's will. And I want you to notice what happens next. Did you know that there's incredibly great, encouraging power in gratitude? Paul said, please eat something for your own good, for not a hair of your head will perish. And he took some bread, gave thanks to God. If I get this right, they're like Leonardo DiCaprio hanging onto the piece of wood. And Paul is saying, let's eat. Let's set a feast here, and I'm going to pray, and we're going to thank God for this food. Well, you got it. You got to eat where you are. When daylight came, the officer ordered those who could swim to jump overboard and swim to the island. The rest grabbed pieces of wood from the broken ship to float on. The point is, they all made it. You realize everybody on the ship is saved, and they're saved because of, well, God overall, but through Paul. Would you bow with me? Let's pray. Father, we come before you because right now we probably are going through storms, or have gone through storms, or we will go through storms. Right now, my thoughts and prayers are with those who are going through the storm right now. May they learn some lesson from the Apostle Paul, because they are tempted to discard everything and just throw it all away. They are in despair. They hurt. They're saddened, ready to give up. Father, would you strengthen? Would you give them discernment? Would you give them hope and peace, strength to make it through the storm? Father, thank you. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. And I encourage you not to give up. Go ahead and bring a song of encouragement up if you can. When we sing this song, notice there is power in the blood, and that's where we want to lead you to. So if you're thinking about becoming a Christian, let us show you the blood. Let us show you the blood of Christ and how you can be immersed, washed in the blood. If, however, you're already a child of God, but you find yourself sometimes on that ship that's breaking up and sinking and falling apart, can we help some way on your journey? Can we give assistance? If there is privacy that you're after, one of our shepherds will be back in the office, back in that corner. If it's a more public thing you want us all to be praying about, then just come to the front and do it right now as we stand and as we sing.